Let's talk lines. A line can be understood as a number of points that are adjacent to one another. A line can be infinite or have two endpoints. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Lines rarely exist in nature, but line does appear in our environment. The crack in the sidewalk, the telephone wires against the sky, bare branches in the winter, a cable bridge. The visual element of line is used mostly to express the juxtaposition of two tones. Line is utilized most often to describe that juxtaposition, and in this, it is an artificial device. Here are some basic types of lines. We have the vertical, the horizontal, the diagonal, intersecting lines, perpendicular, parallel, zigzag, and curved. These lines illustrated on the previous slides are the guides graphic designers use to plan and show emotion and feelings inside ads, logo designs, and billboards. Beginning artists learn the basic 5 kinds and 5 variations of lines to start arranging interesting compositions with the new element of art. Advance forward to view some of our paths of lines and development. The element of line. Our 5 kinds of lines we'll be designing with begin with number 1, horizontal. The feeling our book gives for horizontal lines is that it is calm and restful. As we lay down in bed at night, we ourselves are horizontal. Balance. A perfectly balanced item or items tend to be horizontal. When you place one on one end of a scale and the weight of something else on another end of the scale, they can either be balanced or unbalanced, and a horizontal line represents true balance. Repose is another fancy term for a state of rest or sleep, tranquility, equaling horizontal when we lay down. Kind of line 2, the vertical. It goes up and down from top to bottom. It shows a feeling of stability. Think of the columns that hold up walls and ceilings in buildings. This line also shows strength. If you are standing, you have a little bit more stability and strength behind you than if you're in a seated position or laying down. Dignity. When you see someone in the military stand at attention, they are very vertical. They pull in their stomachs, they pull back their shoulders, and their chest comes out, and they stand with great dignity in a vertical position. Number 3, diagonal lines. These are lines that are falling over. These lines show the feeling of movement. Something now is in action. It hasn't fallen completely to the ground like a horizontal, and it's not standing straight up and down like a vertical. It now has some sense of action to it. If something is falling in your house, maybe you've knocked something over with a ball in the living room and it starts to fall, there's a little bit of tension as to if it might break or not. Diagonal lines give you that sense of movement and action. Kind of line number 4, the curved line. Curved lines show a feeling of movement just like diagonals do, but a different kind. They show a little bit more of a flowing movement. Curves that might go up or down, whether they're extreme or they're subtle. When we're writing with curved lettering, or what we would call cursive, people tend to feel it looks more graceful, more formal. You often see curved lettering styles on invitations for graduations or weddings, but they're all showing that sense of movement. Kind of line number 5, zigzag. A zigzag is nothing more than attached diagonal lines. They're all diagonals going one way and then another, and then the other, and then the other, alternating. So therefore, if they have diagonals in them somewhere, they're going to show movement. These now, because we have opposite or opposing diagonals, give us the feeling of energy. Think of an electrical outlet, that you would feel that something to illustrate that might be a lightning bolt or a zigzag line. Action is happening just as we had with our diagonal lines because of that feeling of movement, of up and then back down again. Here's an example of an EKG. We want the diagonal zigzag lines. That shows that we're healthy and our heart is beating, as opposed to that horizontal line at the very bottom. Remember, horizontal means rest. So if your EKG goes to all horizontals, we call that the big sleep. Now, those 5 lines are great to design with by yourself, but sometimes they need to be kicked up a notch for a little bit more visual interest. So how do we change these lines to make them more imaginative and fun within a design? Enter the 5 variations of lines, ways that we can vary the lines to give them more personalities. Step 1. We can change or vary a line by its length, how long or short you draw a line. Alternating this within a design creates a little visual interest. Two, you could change the width of the actual line. How wide your line is or how thin your line is creates some varied interest. You can see the image at the top left here. The line gradually goes from wider to thinner. And then at the bottom with the zigzags, it's alternating. Number 3, the degree of the curve. This merely means how low or how high of a curve that you're creating. Another way of saying it is, how extreme is that curve? On this design here, you see several scribbles or practices of curves. Some are spirals, tightly wound. Some are almost like parentheses, lightly curved. And others are wiggles and loop-de-loos. So there are different variations or degrees of a curve that you can create. Number 4, the direction and spacing of your lines. You can vary the spacing between the lines that you're creating, and it creates a unique open pattern. Several of these are long and short, like we've seen in our first steps here, variations. Others have bigger gaps between them, some closer gaps between the actual lines. The directions here all seem to be fairly similar, but it's the spacing on this one that creates variation. Again, with curved lines and with straight lines, some interesting variations of space. How far apart and how close. Number 5. This starts to get into some options even within its number 5 category. Texture and or color. You could add texture to a line by not making it so clean and smooth. You can see in this sample here that looks like they're brush strokes that have run out of ink or paint toward the end. So they create a bit of a visual texture on the surface of the paper or canvas. Nothing says that lines have to be absolutely smooth. Could they be colored? Well, why certainly. Sometimes in our art options, we don't always have the opportunity for color, and therefore creating a texture can be interesting. If you do have the opportunity for color, then variations of colored lines, like the one in the bottom right here, can offer you some visual excitement. The others show variations of textured lines. What about lines made from dots? Or dashes and dots?